तो हेलो दोस्तों, बीपीएससी के इस सीरीज़ में हम अभी करंट अफेयर्स देखने वाले हैं। तो अभी शुरू करेंगे करंट अफेयर्स विजन आईएएस के मंथली मैगजीन नवंबर 2014 से। तो बीपीएससी में देखें तो करंट अफेयर्स एक महत्वपूर्ण पार्ट है, एक महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रखती है। तो हम लोग एक एक करके देखेंगे। विजन आईएएस के जितने भी मंथली मैगजीन है हम लोग सब कवर करेंगे एक एक करके। तो इसमें हमें सिक्योरिटी, साइंस एंड टेक, इन्वायरमेंट, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन, ज्योग्राफी, जो विजन आईएएस के मंथली मैगजीन है सारे कुछ इसमें कवर होती है। एथिक्स, पॉलिटी, आर्ट एंड कल्चर, गवर्नेंस स्कीम, इकोनॉमी, जो भी रहते हैं वो सारे कवर्ड हैं। ये मंथली मैगजीन मंथली करंट अफेयर्स जो है यह विजन आईएएस के द्वारा हर महीने निकाली जाती है। ठीक है, तो इस जनवरी के महीने में अभी तक नवंबर, दिसंबर आ चुकी है। तो हम लोग जो यह फोकस कर रहे हैं यह 71st यानी बीपीएससी यानी जो आने वाला बीपीएससी है उस पे फोकस करके हम लोग पढ़ेंगे, जिसमें कि सारे करंट अफेयर्स प्लस जो सब्जेक्ट वाइज रहेंगे। हम लोग पहले करंट अफेयर्स, उसके बाद सारे सब्जेक्ट वाइज सब कुछ कवर करने वाले हैं। तो स्टार्ट करेंगे बीपीएससी 71st की जर्नी। ठीक है, जिसमें सारा कुछ हम लोग कवर करने वाले हैं बीपीएससी एग्जाम के एज पर सिलेबस। ठीक है, तो इसमें अभी जो हम देखेंगे ये इस मैगजीन में हमें पॉलिटी एंड गवर्नेंस के बारे में देखने को मिलेगी, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन के बारे में देखने को मिलेंगे। ठीक है, और हमें इसमें इकोनॉमी के बारे में देखने को मिलेगी, जो करंट अफेयर्स में इकोनॉमी से रिलेटेड रहेंगे। इसमें सिक्योरिटी के बारे में जो न्यूज़ में भी सारे सिक्योरिटी रिलेटेड जितने भी करंट अफेयर्स हैं वो देखेंगे। इन्वायरमेंट के रिलेटेड जो भी करंट अफेयर्स हैं वो देखेंगे। फॉरेस्ट, नेचुरल फार्मिंग, ग्लेशियर लेक और जो भी न्यूज़ हैं वो सारे कुछ हम लोग देखेंगे। साथ ही साथ हम लोग सोशल इश्यूज़ के बारे में जो देखेंगे भी, वर्क फ्रॉम होम, वन नेशन वन सब्सक्रिप्शन और जो भी न्यूज़ सोशल इश्यूज़ के रिगार्डिंग रहेंगे वो देखेंगे। साइंस एंड टेक फील्ड में वन डे वन जीनोम, सत्यनाथ बोस के बारे में, ओआरटी थेरेपी, आरएनए एडिटिंग और जो भी न्यूज़ उसके रिलेटेड रहेंगे उसे देखेंगे। कल्चर में हम लोग बिरसा मुंडा के बारे में और जो भी न्यूज़ अभी न्यूज़ में जो भी हैं कल्चर रिलेटेड करंट अफेयर्स उसे देखेंगे। फिर हम लोग एथिक्स पे देखेंगे। उसके बाद जो भी स्कीम अभी न्यूज़ में है, गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स, उसे देखेंगे, जैसे प्रधानमंत्री मुद्रा योजना, अटल इनोवेशन मिशन, प्रधानमंत्री वन बंधु कल्याण योजना। जो प्लेसेस अभी न्यूज़ में है वह देखेंगे और पर्सनालिटीज़ जो भी न्यूज़ में है उसे देखेंगे। ठीक है, तो चलिए एक एक करके शुरू करेंगे। पूरा वीडियो में बने रहें, सारा कुछ इसमें आपको वन बाय वन डिटेल में डिस्कस होगा। हम लोग लाइन बाय लाइन पढ़ेंगे और देखेंगे क्या है। तो पॉलिटी एंड गवर्नेंस पे पहला चैप्टर इसमें दिया गया है, सोशलिस्ट सेक्युलर इन द प्रीम्बल। व्हाई इट इज़ इन द न्यूज़? बिकॉज रिसेंटली सुप्रीम कोर्ट in Dr. Balram Singh versus Union of India 2024 केस में dismissed the petition challenging the inclusion of the words socialist and secular in preamble through 42nd Amendment Act 1976. Why more in the news? Petitions against the inclusion of these words were filed on the ground that they were inserted during times of emergency 1975-1977. That time Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Okay. And do not represent people's will. Petition also held that since the date of adoption 26th November 1949 by the Constituent Assembly, was mentioned in the preamble and no addition words could be inserted later to it. मीन्स preamble में इस डेट के बाद कोई भी वर्ड इंसर्ट नहीं किया जा सकता है. ठीक है, तो 42nd अमेंडमेंट जो इतना चर्चा में वो क्या है हम उसे देखेंगे. तो 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट is also referred as mini constitution as क्योंकि it amended preamble 40 articles 7th schedule and added 14 new articles and 2 new parts of to the constitution. So 42nd amendment has amended the preamble, 40 articles amended, 7th schedule, and so it has amended preambles 40 articles 7 schedule and added 14 new articles, also 2 new parts to the constitution. Major changes made were in preamble they have inserted the words socialist, secular and integrity, changed unity of nation to unity and integrity of the nation. First it was unity of the nation, then unity of nation it changed to unity and integrity of the nation. Changes in 7th schedule, this following category were transferred from state list to concurrent list. What are those categories? Education, forest, protection of wild animal and birds, weight and measures, administration of justice, constitution and organization of all courts with the exceptions of Supreme Court and High Courts. Emergency, amended Article 352 to authorize the President to declare emergency not only throughout the country but also in any part. Additions of new DPSPs, Article 39 to secure opportunity for healthy development of children, Article 39A equal justice and free legal aid, Article 43A participation of workers in management of industry, Article 48A protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forest and wildlife, and addition of new parts, Part 4A fundamental duties, Part 14A establishment of administrative tribunals. ठीक है, तो एज वी सेड हियर प्रेम्बल को अमेंड किया गया था, 40 आर्टिकल्स ऐड हुए थे, 7th शेड्यूल और 14 न्यू आर्टिकल्स ऐड किए गए थे. तो प्रेम्बल में ये सोशलिस्ट, सेकुलर एंड इंटीग्रिटी ये वर्ड्स ऐड किए गए, 40 आर्टिकल्स ऐड किए गए, 7th शेड्यूल में चेंजेस लाए गए जिसमें कि स्टेट लिस्ट से कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में डाल दिया गया, एजुकेशन, फॉरेस्ट, प्रोटेक्शन, वाइल्ड एनिमल्स एंड बर्ड्स, weight and measures, administration of justice, constitution, organization of all courts with the exception of Supreme Court and High Courts. Emergency Article 352 को अमेंड किया गया और प्रेसिडेंट को ऑथराइजेशन दिया गया that they can declare emergency not only throughout the country but also in any part. ठीक है, DPSPs में 4 आर्टिकल्स जो है 39, 39A, 43A, 48A, अब इसे ऐड किया गया. न्यू पार्ट्स 4A फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज, 14A एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ट्राइब्यूनल्स, ये ऐड किए गए. कुछ ऑब्जर्वेशन सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने किए हैं इस पे. सो की ऑब्जर्वेशन मेड बाय सुप्रीम कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिविटी डिसमिस्ड किया. दैट मीन्स डेट ऑफ एडॉप्शन डज नॉट कर्टेल द अमेंडिंग पावर ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट अंडर आर्टिकल 368 ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. आर्टिकल 368 कहती है कि पार्लियामेंट में इन द एक्सरसाइज ऑफ इट्स कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट पावर अमेंड बाय way of addition, variation or repeal any provision in accordance with the procedure laid down in this article। ठीक है, इस आर्टिकल में जो प्रोसीजर है उसके तहत पार्लियामेंट अपने पावर का एक्सरसाइज कर सकती है एडिशन, वेरिएशन या रिपील करने में कोई भी प्रोविजन को। कोर्ट हेल्ड दैट दिस अमेंडिंग पावर एक्सटेंड्स टू प्रेम्बल, मीन्स यह पावर प्रेम्बल को भी एक्सटेंड होती है, प्रेम्बल को भी अमेंड कर सकती है, एंड कैन बी चैलेंज्ड ऑन वेरियस ग्राउंड इंक्लूडिंग वायलेशन ऑफ द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर। Defined socialism and secularism. The court also defined the two terms as secularism represent one of the facets of the right to equality, as neither the state maintains its own religion nor restrict the freedom of conscience and right to freely profess, practice and propagate religion to its citizen. In Keswananda Bharti versus State of Kerala and S.R. Bommai versus Union of India, Supreme Court observed that secularism is a basic feature of the Constitution. Socialism denotes the state commitments to the welfare state and its commitments to ensuring equality of opportunity. Constitution is a living document. Over time, India has developed its own interpretation of these terms, imparting an organic character to the Constitution. ठीक है, सो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कुछ की ऑब्जर्वेशन किया है जिसमें कि उसने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिविटी जो थी उसे आर्टिकल 368 के तहत डिसमिस किया, सेकुलरिज्म और सोशलिज्म को डिफाइन किया, और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक लिविंग डॉक्यूमेंट है, यह उसने सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस पे की ऑब्जर्वेशन दिया। आगे हम लोग देखते हैं सेकुलरिज्म और सोशलिज्म पे और प्रेम्बल और इस यह कितना अमेंड किया जा सकता है और यह क्या गया है यह देखेंगे। तो सेकुलरिज्म एंड सोशलिज्म, प्रेम्बल एंड इट्स अमेंडेबिलिटी। प्रेम्बल जो है हमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन फिलॉसफी का एक ग्लिम्स देती है और यह डिक्लेयर करती है इंडिया को ए सोवरेन, डेमोक्रेटिक एंड रिपब्लिक। यह गारंटी डज नॉट ग्रांट substantive rights not enforceable in courts, signifies power vested to the people। कुछ केसेस हुए हैं अमेंडेबिलिटी को लेके, लाइक बेरुवारी केस 1960 में, जिसमें बताया गया था कि प्रिम्बल इज नॉट ए पार्ट ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। केशवानंदा भारती केस 1973 में बताया गया कि प्रिम्बल इज अ पार्ट ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड कैन बी अमेंडेड। द सेम LIC ऑफ इंडिया केस 1995 में अगेन बताया गया कि प्रिम्बल इज पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। ठीक है, सेकुलरिज्म, Indian concept of secularism follows the concept of neutrality and positive role towards the religion. In this, state enjoy the power to regulate the economy, financial, political and secular aspects associated with a religious practice. It deals with religious freedom of individual and minority communities. It is different from the Western concept based on the principle of non-interference in the matter of religion. In this, state and religion are strictly separated. That is secularism. Socialism क्या है? Socialism deals with principle which invices the establishment of a society where all individuals enjoy equality in different walks of life, economic, political, social, etc. The idea of socialism was largely popularized with Karl Marx, who gave the idea of scientific socialism. He held that violent revolution by the working class could overthrow exploitative capitalists. Socialism in communist countries like Cuba, China and North Korea etc. provide for the strict control of industry by the government and a centralized planned economy. There are many varieties of socialism like democratic socialism, evolutionary socialism, Fabian socialism, guild socialism, etc. Idea of socialism in India. So it is based on mixed economy model where state ensure welfare of the needy while private enterprises exist for increased employment and strong economic growth. State ensure welfare of the needy and private enterprises exist for increased employment and strong economic growth. It was largely shaped by the ideas of leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, etc. It is different from socialism practice in other communist countries in the following ways. Rejects the stark difference between individual and community. It is focused on reforming both together. Relevance to private property. It accorded greater emphasis to the power of the state in bringing changes along with the presence of private property. It does not believe in the elimination of capitalists but seeks to remove inequality. It says do not eliminate the capitalist but remove inequality. Idea of non-violence. It seeks to eliminate violence from domestic politics. Democratic socialism. It is based on the idea coexistence of democratic principle with the idea of socialism. It differs from Marxism and its conception of state. It believes that the state is not an instrument of exploitation of workers by the capitalist. Rather, the state is an instrument of social welfare. Okay, so we'll move forward. So all class of society on the state. It's not like some particular class of the society on the state. All class of the society on the state. It advocates peaceful and evolutionary means for social changes through ballot box. Despite difference from Marxist idea of socialism, it shares the common goals of ending the exploitation of worker and promoting equality among people. Conclusion. The current Supreme Court ruling stresses on idea that constitutional values have shown continuous evolution to suit the needs of the country. The idea like socialism and secularism are now well accepted and understood by the people. Hence, vigilance, dedication and willingness to adapt to new challenges while remaining true to the core value of constitution like justice, liberty and equality would go a long way in dealing with contemporary challenges like persistent inequality, environmental degradation, etc. Okay, and next it was like there is a topic given based on the property rights in India. So why it is in news? So a 9-judge constitutional bench of Supreme Court delivers a landmark ruling in Property Owner Association versus State of Maharashtra, restricting the power of state to acquire private property. More on the news. The recent judgment has overruled the earlier ruling in State of Karnataka versus Ranganatha Reddy 1978 and Sanjeev Coke Manufacturing Company versus Bharat Coking Coal Limited and ANR 1983. Both the cases had declared private property could be considered community resources. The shift marks a significant development in the legal understanding of property rights in India. So right to property evolution देखते हैं. So original status, initially the right of property and compensation for acquisition were protected as fundamental rights under Article 19(1)(f) and 31 of the Constitution. Fundamental rights. 25th Amendment 1971 introduced Article 31C, which protected law designed to fulfill the directive principle of state policies (DPSPs), specifically Article 39B, 39C, from being challenged for violating fundamental rights, including those under Article 14 and 19. Revised a status of right to property. The 44th Constitution Amendment in 1978 removed the right to property from the list of fundamental rights, making it a constitutional right under Article 300A. Okay, so some key highlights of recent judgment. So Property Owner Association versus State of Maharashtra. So scope of Article 39B, the court emphasized that private property cannot automatically be classified as a material resource of the community under Article 39B. It clarified that not all privately owned resources meet the condition to be treated as such. Article 39B क्या है? Provide that ownership and control of the material resource of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common goods. Authority for property acquisition. Article 39B does not grant legislative power to the state to acquire private property. The court clarified that it comes from a sovereign power of eminent domain and entry 42 of list 3 in the 7th schedule. Criteria of classification. The inclusion of private property as a material source depends on its nature, scarcity, impact on community welfare, and concentration in private hands. Okay, so these are the key highlights of recent judgment, and few more are there. We'll have a look one by one. So they have given like flexibility in economic policy. The court said that framer of the constitution intended for economic policy to be flexible, allowing government to adapt to changing needs rather than being tied to a fixed economy doctrine. Validity of Article 31C. The court unanimously ruled that Article 31C upheld in Keswananda Bharti case is still valid. Balancing public welfare with private property right. The court balanced public welfare with private property rights, ensuring government action aligned with constitutional principles like equality, Article 14, and the right to property, Article 300A. It also applied the public trust doctrine, mandating responsible resource management for the public good. Limits of eminent domain. The court questioned the broad application of the doctrine of eminent domain in land acquisition. The court clarified that not all privately owned resource qualify as material resource of the community that can be appropriated for public goods. What is doctrine of eminent domain? So it provides that government can acquire private property for public use, balancing societal welfare with property rights. This power is exercised by all levels of government, but fair compensation must be provided to the owner. Elements of doctrine of eminent domain. Public use. Government can acquire private property for public purpose like infrastructure, but only if there is legitimate need and no alternatives. Just compensation. When property is acquired, the government must provide fair compensation to the owner based on the market value at the time of acquisition. Due process. Required due process, meaning property owner must be notified in advance and given a chance to contest the acquisition or negotiate compensation. Government authority. It can only be exercised by the government or authorized public agency with legal authority to take property for public use. It is typically regulated by legislation in most jurisdictions worldwide. Important case laws in Sudarshan Charitable Trust versus Government of Tamil Nadu 2018, the Supreme Court clarified that eminent domain is tied to the state sovereignty. The state can acquire private property for public interest provided fair compensation is given. The power does not violate a personal right to livelihood or dignity. Public trust doctrine. It helps protect the environment by ensuring the responsible management of natural resource. By invoking this doctrine, we safeguard this resource and promote the protection of earth. It was recognized as part of Article 21 in the landmark case of Thirumazra Singh versus Indian Oil Corporation and MI Builders versus Radhe Shyam Sahu. So, state as trustee. Under the public trust doctrine, the state acts as a trustee, managing natural resource for public benefit. It ensures that resources are used responsibly and not depleted or damaged. In TN Godvarman versus Indian Union of India, the Supreme Court affirmed that the state as a trustee must ensure natural resources are used sustainably for the public good. Citizen as beneficiaries. The citizens are the beneficiaries of the trust, using resource sustainably for their benefit and for future generations. So, what are the implications of Supreme Court decision? Legislative and political impact. The ruling may influence future property acquisition law, land reforms, and social welfare programs, promoting fairness and transparency. Economic reforms. The decision signals a shift to more market-oriented economy by limiting the state's power to acquire property, supporting private investment while ensuring social justice. Political debates. Political parties may adjust their stance on land reforms and property rights, while the ruling could shape social welfare programs, especially land redistribution for the underprivileged. Constitutional scrutiny. The judgment reinforced the judiciary role in scrutinizing government action on private property, ensuring law align with constitutional rights, including equality and property. Okay. Implication of Supreme Court decisions. So, what is the conclusion? So, the conclusion here is the Supreme Court judgment clarified on Article 39B, stressing a case-by-case approach for classifying private property as material resource for public use. The decision emphasized the need for government action to uphold constitutional principles including equality and property right, while promoting responsible resource management through the public trust doctrine. Okay, so now we will see about internal democracy in political parties. So why it is in the news? So discussion are going about the role of election commission in enforcing democratic functioning of political parties in India. Okay. So 1.3 international democracy in political parties. So what is internal party democracy? So internal party democracy is conceived as the internal arrangement, structure and coordination of political parties in consonance with democratic principle, with the direct bearing on how candidates are selected, leaders emerge, policies are made and funding is provided. Need for internal party democracy: decentralization. It limits the centralized discrepancy control exercised by top level parties leader and opens decision making process to input from wider circle of party stakeholder at various level. It prevent criminalization, addresses the systematic issues of candidate selection based on winnability, often driven by money and muscles power. As per Association of Democratic Reforms ADR, 46% of the newly elected Lok Sabha member have criminal cases against them. Representations: it provides citizens equal political opportunity to participate in politics and contest election. Youth participation: it opens up opportunity for new talent and reduce the influence of a stabilized leader. It reduce corruptions. Administrative Reforms Commission ARC's 2008 Ethics and Governance report noted that corruption is caused by over centralization. Transparency and free flow of information. John Stuart Mills on Liberty 1959 argues for the absolute protection of the liberty of thoughts and discussions. Reason of lack of internal party democracy: no statutory backing. The only governing provision is under Section 29A of Representation of People's Act RPA 1951, which provides for registration of political parties with the Election Commission of India. Also, ECI's guidelines on application format for registration of political parties under Section 29A only prescribe provisions for internal accountability and not candidate selection. Lack of penal provisions. As per judgment under Supreme Court in Indian National Congress 1 versus Institute of Social Welfare, the ECI currently lacks the power to deregister a party. Structural challenges: prevalence of dynastic politics, centralized power structure, anti-defection law, 52nd Amendment to the Constitution of 1985 mandating a strict party line adherence, etc. Other issues: lack of political will, weak organizational framework, etc. There is a quote that no electoral reforms can be effective without reforms in the political party system. National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution NCRWC, in its reports on electoral process and political party, they said no electoral reforms can be effective without reforms in political party system. This is said by NCRWC. Okay. So we look forward, like way forward will be like transparency. Several government constitute committee related to the electoral reforms like the Tarkunde Committee 1975, Dinesh Goswami Committee 1990 and Indrajit Gupta Committee 1998 strongly argued for more transparent working of the political parties in the country. Recommendation of Laws Commission 255th reports on electoral reforms, new chapter IVC in RPA 1951 to deal with internal democracy, party constitution, party organization, internal elections, candidate selections, voting procedure, and the ECI power to deregister a party in certain cases of non-compliance. National Commission to review the working of the Constitution, NCRWC. They said comprehensive legislation as the Political Party Registration and Regulation Act regulating the registration and functioning of political party or alliances of party in India. USA presidential election 1.4. So why it is in news? So recently US presidential election was conducted through the electoral college system through which US presidential election was conducted recently. US presidential election versus Indian presidential election, दोनों में difference क्या है? We'll take parameters. They have given parameters and they have differentiate USA and India's. Okay, so first it is composition of electoral member. The electoral college consists 538 electors, Senate 100 plus 3 of District of Columbia and 435 members of the House of Representatives. So 100 plus 3 for District of Columbia and 435 members of House of Representatives. So 435 plus 100 plus 3, 538 electors. The Electoral College is an intermediary body or process that chooses the US President. In this system, voters of each state cast their ballot to choose members or electors of the Electoral College who then vote to select the President. First, people will cast their ballot to choose the member, that 538 member, and that 538 member will select the President. So a state have varying numbers of electors based on their representation in Congress. A majority of 270 electoral votes is required to elect the President of USA. Majority of, so out of 538, 270 is required for President. Okay, so we'll see in India. So member of an electoral college consisting of the elected members of both the houses of parliament and the elected members of the legislative assembly of the states, including National Capital Territory of Delhi and the Union Territory of Puducherry, via the Constitution 70th Amendment Act 1992, Article 54. Note that the nominated member of either House of Parliament or the Legislative Assembly of State are not eligible to included in Electoral College. Okay, so here what it is, elected member for both the houses of parliament is members of a electoral college. Then elected member of legislative assembly of the state, all they are members in electoral college. Next we have governing rule or act, governing act or rules. In USA, each state establishes its own election rules, reflecting the US decentralized system where individual states oversee and manage their electoral process. And in India, the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Act 1952 is the governing act or rules. So nomination process in USA, candidates secure party nomination through primaries and caucus. Okay, a prospective presidential candidate should get his or her nomination paper subscribed by at least 50 electors as proposers and at least 50 electors as seconders in India. Okay, so 50 as proposer and 50 as seconders has to subscribe for the presidential candidate to nominate a paper. So election methods in USA, most states follow a winner take all approach, where the candidate with the majority in a state wins all its electoral votes except in Maine and Nebraska. Candidate can win the presidency without winning the popular vote, like Donald Trump's win in 2016. System of proportional representation by means of single transferable votes, and the voting at such elections shall be by secret ballot in India. The candidate needs to secure 50% of the total votes plus 1 to win. So this is the election method in India. So vote counting significantly prolonged, largely due to reliance on paper ballot and handling of mails in vote, likely are postal ballot. So that is the vote counting process in USA. In India, use of EVMs, electronic voting machines, we are counting the votes. Frequency of election in USA, every 4 years on a fixed schedule we have frequency of election. In India, we have every 5 years except in exceptional cases. Running mate, the presidential candidate choose a running mate, that is vice presidential candidate will selected by presidential candidate, and in India separate election takes place for vice president of India. Okay, so this is all about our election, US presidential election. Now we will move to municipal corporation in India. Municipal corporation in India. Why it is in news? So the report titled "Own Source of Revenue Generation in Municipal Corporations: Opportunity and Challenges" was released by RBI. So own sources of revenue generation in municipal corporation: opportunity and challenges. This report was released by RBI. So what is municipal institution in India? So India's cities are home to over 400 million people, a number expected to exceed 800 million by 2050. Though city covers just 3% of the land area, they contribute more than 60% of country's GDP. The 74th Constitutional Amendment of 1992 formalized local governments in India, providing a constitutional basic for local government. Functions of local governments. The 74th Amendment read with 12th Schedule of Constitution outline 18th function that state governments can delegate to municipalities, including urban planning, land use regulation, construction, etc. Revenue and fiscal power. Article 243X grants states government to authority to authorize ULBs to impose taxes, duties and fees, to assign certain revenue source to ULBs. Okay. Article 243Y assigns the responsibilities of reviewing and recommending the devolution of taxes and grants to State Finance Commission SFCs. Okay. Revenue sources of urban local bodies. What are the revenue sources? First, their own resources like tax revenue, non-tax revenue and other receipt. So tax revenue they can generate from property tax, water benefit tax, etc. Non-tax revenues like user charges, development charges, etc. Other receipt is like lease rent, sale of rubbish, etc. Assigned shared revenue, entertainment tax subsumed under GST except when levied by local bodies, professional tax, etc. Grants in ad, Central and State Finance Commission SFC devolution, grants under programs like SBM, Amrut, etc. Borrowing, loans from state and central government banks, etc. These are the revenue sources of urban local bodies. Key findings of RBI's report. So they said low revenue generation. Indian municipalities generates only 0.6% of GDP in 2023 to 2024. Much lower than the central government 9.2 and state government as 14.6, limiting urban development funds. Tax revenues constitutes 30% of municipal corporations income, followed by grants, contributions and subsidies 24.9%, and fees and user charges 20.2%. Additionally, according to the CAG report, municipalities in 18 states collects only 56% of their property tax demand. Reliance on transfers. Municipalities depends heavily on delayed and insufficient government transfer. In 2022-23, grants from the central and state governments to municipalities increased by 24.9 to 20.4% respectively. Municipal borrowing rose from 2,886 crores in 2019 to 2020. It increased to 13,364 crores in 2023-2024, increasing from 1.9% to 5.2% of total receipts. Okay. So there are municipal bonds. Municipal bonds market is underdeveloped, totaling 4,204 crores, 0.09 of corporate bonds, with the most bonds privately placed, limiting investor participation. Additionally, the green bonds market is still in its nascent stage, and the process of issuing a green bonds involve additional cost for green audits and monitoring key performance indicators. Other issues faced by municipal corporation in India: financial challenges, ad hoc implementation of SFCs. A state often delay or inadequately implement State Finance Commission SFC recommendation. For example, Telangana's SFC was formed in 2015 but only constituted in 2018. Low absorptive capacity in Indian cities. According to a recent CAG report, urban local self-governments ULSGs is in 11 out of 18 states have utilized only 61% of funds allocated to them. So government's challenges: limited devolution of power. Despite the 74th constitutional amendment, many states have fully devolved power to ULBs, especially in urban planning and land use regulation. States Election Commission. The insufficient strengthening of State Election Commission affects the timely conduct of municipal election every 5 years. For example, election to the Bruhat Bangalore Mahanagar Palike BBMP have been delayed since 2020, disturbing local governments. Human resource: high vacancy rate 30 to 40% and lack of training limits municipalities' ability to provide services. For instances, in 18 states, 37% of positions are vacant as per the CAG reports. Urban planning and service delivery: a significant portion of municipal expenditure, 29%, is not directed towards urban development, limiting infrastructure investment as per the CAG report. What is way forward? Way forward is enhance own source revenue like property tax, adopt valuation based property tax formulas, GIS mapping, and digital payment platform to improve compliances and reduce leakage. Non-tax revenue: adjust user charge for water, sanitation, and waste management to ensure cost recovery. Use technology and public camping to improve fee collections. Timely transfer: ensure direct predictable transfer from state governments based on a clear formula that accounts for inflation and city growth. Form State Finance Commissions SFCs regularly to recommend and implement transfers on time. Diversify funding: explore municipal bonds and innovative financial capital investment. Pool resource for large scale infrastructure project to overcome fiscal constraints. Access climate finance for sustainable urban planning, focusing on green infrastructure and renewable energy. Transparent financial management: implement National Municipal Accounting Manual NMAM 2004 for a standardized accounting practice. A state government should mandate compliance, supporting training, and link intergovernmental transfer to accounting standards. Human resources: states should address issues like vacancy and lack of training institution. For example, Madhya Pradesh has created a municipal cadre to improve staffing and skill development. Okay, so this is what was about the municipal corporation in India that was in the news. Now we will move to 1.6 non-governmental organization NGOs. Why NGOs are in news? The Ministry of Home Affairs MHA has instructed all non-governmental organizations (NGOs) registered under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act FCRA 2010 to report any changes in their key office bearer and members. Okay, so more in the news. This requirement still applies even if an NGO previous FRCA license application is still pending. NGO may submit a new application which will automatically replace the previous one. Registration of several NGO have been cancelled in the past year for violation under the Act, raising questions of their functioning. What are NGO and how are they regulated in India? A non-governmental organization, NGO is a non-profit organization, group or institution that operates independently from a government and has humanitarian or development objective. NGOs in India are formed under societies, trusts, charitable companies. So societies registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860. Private trusts are registered under the Central Government's Indian Trust Act 1882. Public trusts are registered under the state legislation concerned. Charitable companies registered as non-profit companies under Section 8 of Companies Act 2013. NGOs receiving a foreign contribution donation need to mandatorily obtain prior permission for an FCRA registration license from the Ministry of Home Affairs under FCRA 2010. So constitutional provisions related to NGOs. So 7th schedule, trust and charitable institution fall under concurrent list, that is, laws on the subject can be made by both Parliament and the state legislature. Act 19A, Article 19(1)(c) guarantees the right to form association or union. Article 19(a)(1)(c). So regulation of NGOs under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010 FCRA, it regulates the influx of foreign contribution or funds given to individual, association or companies including NGOs. The Act restricts the use of foreign funding for purposes that may affect nation sovereignty and integrity, security, strategic, scientific and economic interest, public interest, etc., or may lead to incitement of an offense or endanger the life of any person. It was amended in 2020 under Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment Act 2020 with the following key changes to prevent misuse of funds by foreign funded NGOs. Mandated receiving foreign contribution through a specified bank in an designated FCRA account. Prohibited the transfer of foreign contribution to other person. Reduced the ceiling on foreign contribution being used for administrative expenditure from 50% to 20%. Empowered central government to direct person receiving foreign funding to not utilize it or receive any further funding after conducting a summary inquiry. Require Aadhaar card number etc. as identification document for office bearer, director and key functionaries. So roles and responsibilities of NGOs. So in governments, Strengthening democracy and governance. Example, Association of Democratic Reforms ADR works in the area of electoral and political reforms. Their political interest litigation PIL resulted in the Supreme Court of India directing candidates to disclose their criminal record, educational qualification and financial assets during elections. Supplementing government's efforts. Example, Akshay Patra Foundation implements PM Poshan initiative to solve malnutrition. Social upliftment and reforms. Protecting human rights. Example, Bachpan Bachao Andolan founded by Nobel Peace Laureates Kailash Satyarthi for protecting children from exploitation. Women empowerment. Example, SEVA, Self-Employed Women Association, supports women workers in informal sector through training, financial service and legal aid. Representation of marginalized section. Example, NAS Foundation supports people living with HIV, AIDS, PLWHA and LGBTQIA plus community. NAS Foundation versus Government of NCT of Delhi judgment eventually led to discriminalizations of homosexuality in India. Poverty alleviation. Example, NGO Gunj. Human resource development, education and capacity building. Example, Pratham NGO works for quality education for underprivileged children in India. And improving health. Example, Medicine Sans Frontiers MSF runs programs in India for tuberculosis, TB, HIV and other infectious disease, etc. Others roles and responsibility are research and developments. Example, Oxfam. Preserving heritage. Example, Indian National Trust for Art and Culture Heritage INTACH. Environmental advocacy. Example, Wildlife Trust of India. Steps taken by Government of India to promote NGOs. So provisions of funds, schemes of Ministry of Cultures and NGO Darpan. These are the steps taken by Government of India to promote NGOs. So provisions of fund, central government provides funds to state governments, UT's administration for implementations of welfare schemes for women and children such as Swadhar, Ujjwala, etc. through NGOs. Schemes of Ministry of Cultures, various schemes like cultural function and production grants CFPG, financial assistance to cultural organization with national presence etc. aim to maximize participants in the field of promotions and conservation of art and culture. NGO Darpan, it provides an unique ID to NGO registered in NGO Darpan portal. Challenges or issues related to NGOs, functional challenges, potential donor driven agendas misaligned with local context. Example, several NGOs allegedly played a central role in introducing sex determination technology to India. Possible interference in economic and strategic initiative. Example, Kudankulam Atomic Energy Program has faced severe protests due to international NGOs. Security concerns regarding misuse of funds for terrorism, radicalization, etc. Regulating and legal challenges. Strict FCRA regulation impacting operation capability, especially for small NGOs. Potential financial mismanagement such as involvement in financial fraud, misutilization of funds, corrupt practice, money laundering, etc. Operational issues, high dependence on donors, poor volunteer engagement, technology limitation of NGOs, etc. Okay. Recommendation for improvement is there are few recommendations given by committees, like recommendations of Vijay Kumar Committee 2017. They have given some recommendation like light regulation approach, framework that balance oversight with operational freedom for NGOs, reducing bureaucratic hurdles and fostering a cooperative relations with the government, modernizing registration procedure to facilitate compliance with the Income Tax Act and the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act FCRA, establishment of a nodal body to oversee interactions between NGOs and government entities, creation of comprehensive accreditations and audits frameworks for NGOs, develop searchable database of NGOs to enhance transparency, promote volunteerism through educational institution partnership. Second, ARC recommendation: decentralize FCRA implementation, ensure balanced legislative interpretations protecting voluntary sector operations. So these are the things related to the NGOs was there in the news. Now we will see governments and AI. Governments and AI. Why in the news? Governments and AI, why in the news? So next topic, governments and AI. So why it is in news? So India's first AI data bank. India's first AI data bank to boost innovation by offering researchers, startups, and developers access to diverse data sets for scalable AI solution was launched recently. More in the news. The data bank will strengthen national security by enabling real-time analysis of satellites, drone, and IoT data for AI-driven disaster management and cyber security. Additionally, Indian National AI Strategy promotes innovation, ethical governance, and global collaboration with partnership to advance AI in healthcare, agriculture, smart cities, and space exploration. India has established itself as a global leader in technology driven governments and digital public infrastructure DPI in last few years. Digital public infrastructure DPI drives digital transformation and improves public services, helping countries meet national goals and accelerate sustainable development goals. All these crucial components for overall government's architectures and its linkage with AI in India. Potential of AI to transform governments of India. It's like efficient service delivery, inclusivity and accessibility, data-driven policy making. So efficient service delivery, AI automates public service, reducing government workload and improving service quality. For example, in education sector, AI can transform India educational system by enabling personalized learning, creating smart content, and automating grading and assessment. For example, NCERT has listed a set of 31 metadata elements to be tagged to each resource available in NROER, National Repository of Open Educational Resources repository. In healthcare, AI is transforming healthcare by improving delivery and accessibility, particularly through telemedicine in remote areas. For example, Niti Aayog with Department of Biotechnology (DBT) aims to build database of cancer-related radiology and pathology images for effective use of AI in cancer management. Agriculture. In agriculture, AI provides predictive insights of weather, pest management, and resource use, benefiting farmers. For example, National Pest Surveillance System utilize AI and machine learning to detect crop issues, enabling timely intervention for healthier crops. Inclusivity and accessibility. AI powered DPI system bridges gaps, particularly in multilingual countries like India. For example, Vasini platform uses AI to provide government service in regional languages. Data-driven policy making. AI analyzes large data sets for evidence-based policy making, improving transparency and policies effectiveness. For example, the Rural Urban Data Exchange uses AI to optimize urban service like traffic management and waste disposal. Judicial efficiency. AI improves judicial efficiency by automating case management, prioritizing case, predicting outcomes, and streamlining legal research. For example, Subhas Supreme Court Vidhik Anubad software is an AI based translation tool that bridges language gap in legal proceedings. Disaster management. AI driven system like Rahat Rapid Action for Humanitarian Assistance app help predict natural disasters such as floods by providing early warnings and supporting evacuations, search and rescue operations during emergency. Some initiative to promote AI in India. National Strategy for AI (NSAI), Niti Aayog All for AI for All strategy focused on AI sector like healthcare, agriculture and education. India AI program Mighty initiative promote AI innovation, skill developments and ethical practice. Digital Personal Data Protection Act a strengthen data privacy, addressing AI related concern. Global partnering on AI GPAI. India collaborates globally to align AI strategy and international standards. Skill developments programs like Responsible AI for Youth and Future Skills expand AI education, especially Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities across. International partnership collaboration like the US-India AI initiative explore AI in sectors like healthcare and agriculture. Challenges in AI integration for government. So, fragmented data across government departments, infrastructure gaps, regulatory frameworks, skills gap, data privacy, weak IP regime, ethical bias. So, what is fragmented data across government departments? For example, the National Data Governance Framework Policy (NDG-FP), which aims to standardize the management of non-personal and anonymized data for data-driven governments, has not yet been implemented. Infrastructure gaps, poor internet, storage, and computing in rural areas, along with a lack of robust cloud infrastructure for AI, creates a digital divide. For example, as of 2023, 45% of India's population still lacks internet access, according to a study by IAMAI, Internet and Mobile Association of India. Regulatory frameworks. India lacks AI specific laws, unlike EU's AI Act, raising concern about ethics, data privacy, and accountability. Skill gaps, a demand supply gap of 140,000 AI professionals in India, as reported by NASSCOM, limits growth. Data privacy, AI's reliance on sensitive data increases breach risk as seen in Aadhaar data leak on the dark web affecting 81.5 crores Indians. Weak IP regime, India ranks 42nd in 2024 IP index, offering limited protection and incentive for AI innovation. Ethical biases, AI systems trained on biased data can produce discriminatory outcomes, raising ethical concerns about fairness and accuracy. What is way forward to look into this? So, risk management and ethical oversight. AI must be dynamically assessed and monitored with human oversight to prevent bias and manage risk. Data sovereignty and privacy, ensure data privacy and compliances with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, especially for cross-border data. Bias, fairness, and transparency. AI must be fair and transparent with audits, fairness metrics, diverse datasets, and model cards for critical sectors. Education and skill developments, expand initiative like India AI Future Skills to provide AI education in underserved areas. Public private collaboration, India AI compute capacity aims to build a scalable AI ecosystem with 10,000 plus GPUs to support AI startups and research. Cybersecurity and monitoring, use AI for real-time threat detection and continuously refine AI policy. To more To know more about global AI governance, refer to Article 1.2. So, we will be covering this September 2024 monthly current affairs magazine also. So, there we have discussed about global AI governments. It was taken, it was detailed in September 2024 monthly current affairs magazine. Okay. So, participatory AI development and governments. Participatory approaches in AI developments and governments paper released by IIT Madras. This is about participate AI and PAI. It refers to the involvements of a wider range of stakeholders than just technology developers in the creation of AI systems. Core tenets of PAI are derived from participatory governments, that is idea of participatory governments in India and abroad is like Land Acquisition Act 2013, social impact assessment study in collaboration with affected family, Forest Right Act 2006, Gram Sabha as the a, stat, a statutory institution due to its participatory and democratic nature. Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing, benefits arising from the use of traditional knowledge be shared with indigenous communities. Okay, what is the need of PAI? So, progress in AI or PAI and its deployment by public and private actors like facial recognition technology in law enforcement, etc. Benefit of PAI, so counter unilateral top-down decision making, mitigate risk like bias, discriminatory output, etc. Feedback loops for flagging technical glitches and post-deployment impact assessment. Enhance trustworthiness of AI system through minimal false positive and false negative. Challenges with PAI is like cooptation, limited participation of non-experts, participatory washing and tokenism, transparency paradox. Co-optation, domination by selected dominant actor to serve their vested interest. Limited participation of non-expert, participatory washing and tokenism is stakeholders' participation merely done for formal compliances. Transparency paradox, information shared about algorithm can be misused by malicious actors. Okay, so this is all about the India and AI. Okay, so this was briefly given like what is the benefit of governments and AI, why it was in news. Okay, so now let's move to the another topic. 1.8, digitalization of land records. Why in the news? Land records. Union Minister of Rural Development recently notified that merely 95% of records have been digitalized in rural India since 2016. Nearly 95% of land records. Why it is more covered in the news? This achievement is due to the Digital India Land Record Modernization Program, DIL RMP. Digital India Land Record Modernization Program. Additionally, digitization of cadastral map has reached 68.02 at the national level. Also, 87% of sub-registrar office have been integrated with land records. About Digital India Land Record Modernization Program, it is launched in 2016 by revamping the National Land Records Modernization Program. Ministry, Central Sector Scheme under the Department of Land Resource Ministry of Rural Development. It has been extended from 2021 to 2022 to 2025 to 2026 with the addition of two new component-wise computerization of all revenue codes in the country and their integration with land records, consent-based linking of Aadhaar number with records of rights. It aims to replace the manual presumptive land title system with digital conclusive land titling system. This is the aim of digitalization of land records. Key initiative under DIL RPM is like Bhu Aadhaar, Unique Land Parcel Identification Number, ULPIN, a 14-digit alphanumeric code for each land parcel to streamline real estate transactions, resolve property disputes and improve disaster management efforts. National Generic Document Registration System, NGDRS, e-registration ensuring uniform process of deed document registration. E-code integration, linking land record with e-codes, adding faster resolution and reducing land dispute. Transliteration of land records, transliteration into 22 scheduled languages to overcome languages barrier in accessing land records. Bhumi Samman Award, platinum grading for district achieving the saturation of core component of DIL RPM. Why it was needed? Need of digitization of land records. So socio-economic relevance, access to land and its documented ownership is vital for livelihood of the majority of the vulnerable section, poor, marginal farmers, tribes, etc. Land ownership disputes, lack of a conclusive titling, illegal land acquisitions through forgery and benami property have led to increased land ownership disputes. More than 60% of litigation in India is land related. Inconclusive land titling system, land records designate actual ownership. The title is granted by the government. Inefficient administrative process. The system of updating and correcting land records is very complex, elaborate and tedious, which can lead to corruption, land grabbing, etc. Outdated mapping. Lack of updated records has resulted in record not being representative of the present ground realities relating to possessions and ownership. Targeted public service delivery. Exclusion errors in rural development schemes linked with the land ownership due to lack of effective land titling hinder the social justice objective. Example, through PM Kisan scheme, the government provides income support to all land holding farmers families, strengthening revenue administration. Property tax and land based financial form a major source of revenue for local governments. Infrastructure development. Land disputes and unclear titling lead to cost delay and inefficiency in infrastructure development and encourage black market of land transactions. Challenges in the digitalization of land. Presumptive land titling. The transfer of land based on the Transfer of Property Act 1882 required registration of sales deed and not of land titles. Thus, bona fide property transaction may not always be guarantee ownership, as earlier transaction could be challenged. Center state coordination. Land being a state subject. Digitization of land records depends on the willingness of states, government and center-state cooperation. Lack of coordination and standardization among states in terms of land laws, policies and system also hinder digitalization. In silos approach of departments, land ownership is stabilized through multiple documents maintained by different departments, making it cumbersome to access them. Example, sales deed. Sale deed are stored in the registration department, maps are stored in survey department, and property tax receipt are with the revenue department. Legal provisions related to registration. Non-mandatory registration for transactions such as acquisition of land by government, property leased for less than 1 year, and hire base partitions under Registration Act 1908, leading to increased litigations. High cost of registration. High stamp duty and registration fee discourages formal registration of property transactions, leading to discrepancies in reflection of grounds reality of land records. Other legacy data issues. Stakeholders resistance to change, infrastructure gap in certain regions, procedural complexity, technology constraint, etc. What is way forward in this? So conclusive land titling, moving towards a system of conclusive land titling and state guarantee of ownership will add in improving the transparency and accuracy of land records. Model Act on Conclusive Land Titling 2020 by Niti Aayog can add to formulating state law in this regard. Legal reforms. Changes in law related to registration of property, such as registration of property titles, namely updating of existing records, etc. Technology integration, improving efficiency of GIS system for georeferencing of cadastral map, National Generic Document Registration System NGDRS, etc. Training and awareness generation, training of personnel and improving digital literacy and awareness of people for effective implementation of the schemes. Land reforms in India. Land reforms in India were emphasized in various five-year plan as well as by the J.C. Kumarappa Committee 1949. Land reforms encompass mainly five components: abolition of intermediary tenures, Jamindari. The Jamindari Abolition Act were enacted in various states during 1950s to 1970s, which put an end to a big landlord-tenant relationship. Under these reforms, the land was redistributed based on the idea of land to the titler. Land to the tiller. Tennessee reforms law were enacted to bar illegal forceful eviction of tenants by landlords and ensure fair rent rates. However, due to presence of many legal loopholes, exploitations of tenants continued. Example, the permanent tenancy system, whereby a tenant could stay on the land for long period but could not lay a claim on it. Ceiling of land holding and distribution of surplus land. The Land Ceiling Acts enacted during 1970s aimed at capping the landholding of an individual or family and redistributing the surplus land to landless, promoting more efficient agriculture practices. However, it saw limited success due to legal loopholes, resistance from landed elite, corruptions, and lack of political will. Consolidation of holdings. It aimed at combining fragmented land into larger, more contiguous holdings to enable mechanization and more efficient farming practices. However, resistance from small farmers unwilling to give up their land led to limited success of initiative. Compilation and updating of land records. So these are the digital inclusion of digital inclusion about the land records, digitization of land records provided here. We'll move to the new topic, next topic, that is persons with disability. 1.9 Persons with disability. Why in the news? In Rajiv Raturi versus Union of India or ORS, the Supreme Court directed the Centre to frame mandatory rule under Right of Persons with Disability RPWD Act 2016 to ensure accessibility in public places and services. Key highlights of the judgment was the background of this. The judgment is based on a report submitted by Center for Disability Studies, Nalsar University of Law, and uphold the social model disability. The social model of disability focus on social changes for inclusion and equality of PWDs by removing social barriers preventing their full participation. Legislative gap declared Rule 15.1 ultra vires to the RPWD Act and called for a single enforceable accessibility framework aligned with Act legislative intent. Rule 15 deals with the accessibility to the establishment. Mandatory accessibility standards. Section 40 of the RPWD Act 2016 requires mandatory accessibility standards to be framed within 3 months. Principle of accessibility: universal design, comprehensive inclusion across disability, integration of assistive technology, and continuous consultation with stakeholders should be considered while carrying out exercise. 2. Prolonged approach, ensuring accessibility in existing institutions, activities, and reforming new infrastructure and future initiative. Data Bank says status of PWs in India, census 2011, 2.21% of the total population are disabled. 2.21% of total person are disabled. 56% of disabled persons are male, whereas 44% are female. Approx 69% of disabled population resides in rural area. 21% of total disabled are elderly, 60 plus years old. 60 plus year olds, 21% of total disabled. Okay. So what are the constitutional provisions safeguarding interests of persons with disability? So in preamble it says it seeks to secure to it all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief and faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity. Fundamental rights, Article 14, 19 and Article 21. Article 14 uphold equal access to spaces, services and information. Article 19 guarantees the freedom to move and express oneself. Article 21 ensure the right to live with dignities. Directive Principle of State Policy, DPSPs. Article 41, it calls for public assistance in case of unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement, etc. Responsibility of Panchayat and municipalities. 11th schedule, social welfare including welfare of handicapped and mentally retarded, entry 26 of Article 243Z. 12th schedule, safeguarding interest of weaker section including handicapped and mentally retarded, entry 9 of Article 243W. Okay. Challenges faced by persons with disability. First, attitudinal barriers, social barriers, transportation barriers, physical barriers, communication barriers and policy and programmatic barrier. So what is attitudinal barriers? It includes a stereotyping, stigma, prejudice and discrimination hindering opportunity for social integration and perpetuating a cycle of exclusion and isolation. Social barriers, example PWDs are far less likely to be employed, educated and have sufficient income which prevent them from enjoying their rights. Transportation barriers, inaccessibility within the built environment, transport system and communication channels severely interferes with PWD to independently function in society. World Report on Disability says this. Physical barriers, these are structure obstacles mainly related to the design of construction of indoor and outdoor facilities that block mobility. Communication barrier, it is experienced by people who having disability related to hearing, speaking, reading, writing, etc. Policy and programmatic barrier, example, inconvenient scheduling, lack of accessible in equipments, limit effective delivery of public health care program. Initiative taken for welfare of persons with disability. Right of person with disability RPWD Act 2016. It has been enacted to give effect to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Its features are: it defines person with disability as a person with long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment which hinders his or her full and effective participation in society equally with others. It also defines person with benchmark disability as a person with not less than 40% of a specified disability. Recognition of disability. It recognizes 21 category of disability, prohibits discrimination against persons with disability in all aspects of life, including employment, education, and healthcare. Establishment of a statutory body, Rehabilitation Council of India (RCI), constituted under the RCI Act 1992. It regulates the training of professionals and promotes research. National Trust for the Welfare of Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Mental Retardation, and Multiple Disability to empower the full participation of PW to live independently with dignity, equal rights, and opportunities. Establishment of central public sector enterprises like National Divyangjan Finance and Development Corporation. It promotes economic empowerment through skill training and self-employment venture by extending loans. Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India (ALIMCO) is a mini Ratna company formed under Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013 that manufactures artificial adds and appliances. Accessible India Camping Sugamya Bharat Abhiyan. It aims to accelerate accessibility, creating awareness and sensitization for creation a universal barrier-free environment. It focuses on developing an accessible physical environment, transportation system, and information and communication ecosystem. National Policy for Persons with Disability 2006. It outlines a specific measure and strategy for ensuring protection of the rights of PWDs and their inclusion in society. Steps to be taken: enable access to all mainstream policies, system, and service. All stakeholders should ensure equal participation of PWDs equally with other in any active and service intended for the general public. Invest in specific program and services for people with disability. Greater investment is needed for rehabilitations, support services, training, etc. Example: rehabilitation with assistive technology such as wheelchair, hearing aids, the white cans improve the functioning and independence of PWDs. Participatory approach: people with disabilities should be consulted and actively involved in formulating and implementing policies, law, and services. Nothing about us without us principle should be followed to ensure inclusivity. Okay. Improve human resource capacity. Relevant training on disability which incorporates human rights principles should be integrated into current curriculum and accreditation programs. Example, availability of a specialist staff contributes to effective and affordable health care for people with disability, provide adequate funds and improve affordability. Adequate and sustainable funding of publicly provided service is needed to ensure that they reach all targeted beneficiaries, increase public awareness and understanding of disability. Improvement is in public understanding of disability to confront negative perceptions and represent disability fairly can break the attitudinal and social barriers. Examples, educational authorities should ensure that schools are inclusive and have an ethos of valuing diversity, improving disability data collection. Better collection of data and its segregation based on age, sex, socio-economic status can help in better understanding of barriers. Okay, so this is all about the disability in India. So now we'll look forward about the news in shorts available. So 1.10 news in shorts. 1.10 news. So now we will see 1.10 news in shorts. So first is Grievance Redressal Assessment Index, GRAI. So recently, Grievance Redressal Assessment and Index GRAI 2023 has been released by DARPG. About GRAI, conceptualized by Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievance. DARPG, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. Based on recommendation of Parliamentary Standing Committee of Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pensions. Index is based on 4 dimensions: efficiency, feedback, domain and organizational commitment, and 11 indicator assessing grievance redressal mechanism. So 4 dimension, 11 indicators adopted by central ministry and departments. Objective highlights strength and area of improvement regarding grievance redressal mechanism on various organization. Ranking, Department of Agriculture and Farming Welfare topped the ranking, followed by Department of Posting, Group A. Okay, this is about GRAE. We have another civil registration system, CRS. So recently, Union Home Minister launched civil registration system mobile application. Union Home Minister launched civil registration system CRS application developed by Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India. Is expected to reduce time required for this registration seamlessly. About CRS क्या है? It is unified system for continuous, mandatory and permanent documentation for vital events including births, deaths and stillbirth along with their associated details. The Registration of Births and Death Act 1969 mandate that all births and deaths must be officially registered. It operates under the authority of Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India. It included in the concurrent list under Schedule 7. Next is prior sanction mandatory to prosecute public servant. Supreme Court ruled that prior sanction is mandatory to prosecute public servant in money laundering cases, thus establishing a key procedural safeguard under the Stringent Prevention of Money Laundering Act PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and adding a layer of accountability to PMLA prosecutions. Key highlights of Directorates of Informants versus Vivu Prasad Acharya case. Directorate of Enforcement versus Vivu Prasad Acharya case. Supremacy of CRPC. The court asserted that the PMLA doesn't supersede the requirement for prior sanction under section 197 of CRPC. The provision corresponds to section 218 of Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2023, which replaced CRPC with effect from July 1st, 2024. Section 197 of CRPC to protect the public servant from prosecutions and from being prosecuted for anything they do in the discharge of their duty. Exceptions: protection is not unqualified and public servant can be prosecuted with a previous sanction from the appropriate government. Provisions towards protection of civil servant, Article 3111 and Article 3112, they provide constitutional protection to civil servant. Public Servant Inquiries Act 1850 ensures inquiries are conducted fairly and transparently, upholding principles of natural justice within the public administration. Okay, so what is PMLA 2002? So comprehensive law to prevent money laundering and to provide confiscation of property derived from money laundering. Implementation Authority, Enforcement Directorate ED, and Financial Intelligence Unit India FIUIND. Money laundering क्या है? So the PMLA defines money laundering as activities like concealing, possessing, or acquiring proceeds of crimes to make illegally earned money appear legitimate. Okay. This is covered in September 2024 magazine also. You can go back and check in the channel. So reports on prisons in India. Next news is reports on prisons in India. Recently, President of India released reports on prisons in India, mapping prison manual and measure for reformation and decongestion. Report prepared by Center for Research and Planning, the research wing of Supreme Court of India, seeks to highlight the complexities of Indian prison system, which a focus on potential for technology-driven solution. Key insights from the reports: stereotyping. Prisons manuals often refer to essential sanitation and conservancy work as menial or degrading, perpetuating or hierarchical view of labor. Bail rejection rate of bail application is high, 32.3% in session court and 16% in magisterial courts. Slow trials: over 52% of cases where accused were in custody for more than a year were still pending at evidence stage in 2023. Other: persistence of manual scavenging in prisons, division of prison work based on caste system held unconstitutional in Sukanya Sanhita case, underutilization of open prisons, etc. Use of technology for prison reforms: e-prisons developed by National Informatics Center to integrate all activity related to a prison and prisoner management. Model Prisons and Correctional Service Act 2023 introduced the use of electronic monitoring technology as the condition for granting prison leaves for prisoner. Faster, fast and secure transmission of electronic record system of a Supreme Court resolved delay in communication of bail's order from court to prison. Interoperable Criminal Justice System (ICGS). Interoperable Criminal Justice System can create an automatic channel between court, police, and prisons and reduce unjustified delay in custody cases. This is all about the reports on prisons in India released by President of India. Report prepared by Center of Research and Planning, the research wings of Supreme Court of India. Okay. So next news is 51st Chief Justice of India CGI appointed. Recently, Justice Sanjeev Khanna took oath as 51st Chief Justice of India CGI. The oath of the office was administered by the President of India during the ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan. About appointment of CGI, the senior-most Supreme Court judge considered fit for the role is usually appointed as the CGI on recommendation of the outgoing CGI. Means the outgoing CGI will recommend. On that recommendation, the senior-most Supreme Court judge will consider fit for the role to be appointed as CGI. So this convention was breached in. So previously this was the convention. This was breached in 1964, 1973 and 1977. The Union Ministry of Law, Justice and Companies Affairs seeks this recommendation, which is then sent to the Prime Minister, who advised the President on the appointment. So under Article 124(2), every judge of Supreme Court be appointed by the President and shall hold office until he or she attains age of 65 years. Okay. Key role of CGI: first amongst the equal. Supreme Court is the Supreme Court in the state of Rajasthan versus Prakash Chand 1997 ruled that CGI, Chief Justice of India, is the head of the judiciary and holds a leadership position. They do not hold any superior judicial authority over the other Supreme Court judge. Master of the roster. It is the exclusive power of the CGI to constitute benches, including Constitution Bench, to hear cases. Head of Collegium. CGI heads the Collegium for judicial appointments and transfers in the higher judiciary. Appointment of the officers and servant of a Supreme Court. It shall be made by the CGI or such other judge or officer of the court as he may direct. Article 146. Okay. So about the Collegium, judicial appointments. Judges of Supreme Court and High Courts are recommended by Collegium and appointed by the President under Article 124 and 217. For appointment in Supreme Court, Collegium consists of CGI and 4 other senior most judges of the Supreme Court. High Court's appointments involves recommendation by High Court Collegium, Chief Justice and 2 senior most judges of concerned High Court, and Supreme Court Collegium, CGI, and 2 senior most judge of Supreme Court. Okay. Next news we have is Interstate Council. The Interstate Council has been reconstituted. What is Interstate Council? It is a forum through which center and the state coordinates and cooperates with each other. Genesis, established under Article 263 of Constitution through a presidential order in 1990 on recommendation of Sarkaria Commission. Composition, it consists of Chairman, Prime Minister, members CM of all states, CM of Union Territory having a legislative assembly and administrative of UTs not having legislative assembly. 6 ministers of cabinet rank in Union Council of Ministers to be nominated by the Prime Minister. So they are the member of Interstate Council. Okay. Next news we have from Aligarh Muslim University's AMU status as minority institution. Recently, Supreme Court overturned its decision which denied Aligarh Muslim University status as minority institution. The Supreme Court by 4:3 majority overruled its S. Aziz Basa versus UOI Union of India 1967 judgment, which held that AMU cannot claim minority status under Article 31 as it was established by a statute. Supreme Court in S. Aziz Basa versus UI had held that AMU was neither established nor administered by Muslim minority, and it is a central university established through AMU Act 1920. Later on, Parliament through AMU Amendment Act 1981 restored AMU minority status. So fundamental rights of minorities to established and administered educational institution under Constitution. Article 31A, Article 30A provides for linguistic and religious minority a fundamental right to establish and administer educational institute of their choice. National Commission of Minority Educational Institution NCMEI Act has been enacted to safeguard the educational rights of the minorities enshrined in Article 31 of the Constitution. Okay. However, Allahabad High Court struck down the minority status of AMU in 2006, which has been subsequently challenged in Supreme Court in 2019. Supreme Court has now referred issue of AMU's minority status under Article 30 to a regular bench based on principle established in this judgment. Key highlights of the judgment was no need for minority control over administration to prove that it is a minority educational institution. Courts should trace genesis and identify brain behind the institution to determine who established the institution. Minority status is not surrendered because an institution was created by a statute or upon incorporation of the university. Community that weren't a minority before the Constitution are also entitled to Article 31 protection for institution established before independence. Okay, so this where in the Polity and Governance we'll discuss more about the upcoming chapters in upcoming videos. Hope you like it. Let's see you in next videos. We'll study a next part in next video. Thank you.